Hey, so in the last video we've seen how to use some of the things we learned in the fundamentals of using C#, how they can be used actually in Unity to we created a chessboard. Okay, we've seen a lot of other things like how to actually work and create things with Unity, but we did combine it with a C# code and actually things we learned. So we're going back to Code Wars with the C# fundamentals, and we'll look for more things that are might be relevant for creating other things like games, like app, etc. But for now, let's look at this problem, and this is actually a better problem, a more interesting problem, because we're going to work on arrays. So given an array of integers, your solution should find the smallest integer. So it's basically finding the minimal value inside an array. Okay, I like this kind of question. So let's do it. I think it's a bit better than just looking, on Boolean values or using the model, the remainder to show this kind of input or another kind of input. And this is much more has much more resemblance. It's much more like an actual problem that we want to solve in a game. So, for example, this is finding minimum problem, right? So let's say we have 5 enemies and we want to decide which enemy is the closest to us so we can shoot it, for example, in a tower defense games. So the distance might be numbers, and the minimal number will represent the closest enemy. The minimal number will be the shortest distance to the enemy which is the closest to the tower, so the tower should point and shoot that exact enemy. So this is the same kind of problem, so let's have a look. So find smallest int. Okay, so we get args, this is the name of the array of int, and we want to find the smallest number. Now you can imagine we want to loop and go over the array, and we want to do it in the shortest way possible. So to be certain that we find the minimal number, we have to go all over the array, but we have to do it once. So if the size of the array, for example, is 10, we can do it by going through 0 to till 10, so 0, 1, 2, till 9, and to look for the minimal number. So how would we do that? First of all, we want some variable that will help us keep track of the minimal number, and what we'll do, we'll call it int min value. And so what we want to do is compare it to the other value and to find it. So we have some options here. We can either start with the really big value, like the maximum value of int, or we can just take the first value, okay, and start from there. So I'll go with the second method, so I'll just go minimum value, just go for args in 0. Now the thing is, what happens if we don't have any integer in the array? This is a possibility. So this might cause an exception, because we look in the first index, but if there are no values in this array, this will actually cause a problem. But look what we have here, and this is very important. You can assume the purpose of for the purpose of this kata that the supplied array args will not be empty. So they thought of that in advance. So great. So we know there should be 0. So let's continue. So we want to go on all the other values. We don't need to go on 0. So we start from 1. So for int I is for index, I equals not 0, but 1. We already kind of check 0. Okay, if 0 is the minimum, it will already be here. So for this one, while I is smaller, we need the size of args, so it should be args dot, I think it's length, I think so. I usually work with a rider, which used for Unity, and it's autocomplete thing like that, but I would work with that. So args point length, and we go for I++, increment it by 1 for each step in the loop, and we need to get the current value. So the current value will be the args in this index. So args in the index I. So we can put it inside the variable, but we actually don't need it. The only thing we need is to test it with an if statement, and we want to know if this is actually smaller than the minimum value, which means we have found a new minimal value in the array. And if it's so, we know that the mean value should now be the value in args in the I index. So very simple, and after we finish with this loop, we can just return the mean value. Very simple calculation if you think about it. So let's take a small example, or actually here, okay? So we have 34, 15, 88, and 2. So we start by minimum value is equal, it gets the value of args in the index 0. So it will get 34. And we'll go to I equals 1, and args in the place 1 is 15, and 15 is smaller than the minimum value of 34, so we'll change it. The minimum value will get the value of 15, and that's great. On the next step of the loop, I will be equal to 2 because of this, right? I plus plus. So I will be equal to 2. 2 will will be smaller than args.length. Args.length is 4, and 2 is smaller than 4. So args in the place 2 will be 88, but 88 is definitely not smaller than 15, so it wouldn't go inside this if statement. It wouldn't go inside this condition. It would just continue and move on to the next step of the loop. In the next step, we'll have I equals 3, okay, because of this. So we had 2 and now it's 3. So args in the third index, which is actually 2, okay, because 0, 1, 2, 3. So we'll get the value of 2, and 2 is smaller than 15. And if 2 is smaller than 15, then we have a new minimal value. So minimum value will be equal to 2, and that's the answer. So this would work. In the same way this one will go, it just will go to minus 345, and that will be enough. Here we have it working with negative value. Just a second, I'll pause the recording to help my daughter. Okay, so it seems to be doing the right thing from the small check we did, but let's test it. Sorry for my daughter. Okay, so here we go. We have something like this. Int does not have definition of length. So I either wrote length wrong or something else. So what should we do? We can use Google. Okay, we just say C# get size of array, and we just look at the answer, and it does say length, but it's not, and it's written like this, but it's a method. So length like this. Let's fix it. So length, right? Length. Let me make sure. Yeah, there it is, the last, like this, and so this should work. Let's test it. Okay, workable member.length cannot be used like a method. That's strange, right? Because it when we looked on Google, here it does regard it as a this is the array.length method. Okay. So let's just have a look on how they use it. So this is the array.length. So we have parameter, it just needs to be written like this. And there's also probably the array.length method. This is the way to call it. So probably. So just like this without the brackets. Let's go back and fix it. And that's it. Okay, so sometimes we have this kind of compilation issues, compilation errors, which help us to fix our code. My daughter is a bit noisy. Okay, so let's run the test. And yeah, both tests passed. Let's do another attempt with all the other tests. And wow, we had 53 tests and all passed. So thank you, I'll submit it, and let's just have a look on other solutions that people might have. So great, so we finished it, find smallest int, and this one just uses the minimum function of args. Okay, so this is a good way. You know there is a function, that the array has a function, and you use it. But let me tell you something. Though this has solved this question, from my understanding and the way I think about it is, when we learn, we want to actually understand how to do it without using all the function and all the knowledge we have on the language, on the programming language. And this is because this is a way to improve the way we understand and think about the work with the code. Okay, so I will not use this kind of solution. You see me use in another one. Here again, they use the minimum. And here is a bit better. So in this way, it uses for each. For each is like going for all the values in the array, not with a for loop. It's another type of loop, but it does the same. Okay, it goes for every argument in args and it puts it in num. And in num is smaller than small, which is what they call the minimum value. Then we update the small to be num and we return small. Also working pretty nice. But just small thing about this. You see here the small got the value in args in the first index in 0. This will actually go again on the same value. So it's doing the work one more time. It's pretty good still. This is another method, again using another way of doing this, using the sort method of array, which will sort the array, which will make sure that all the values would go from the minimum to the maximum and then return the first one. Now this will work, but sorting an array actually takes much more work than just going over it and finding the minimal value, because it's sorting all the values to be from the smallest, from the minimum to the maximum. So this is actually will take longer time. And this is another way of using the minimum function of enumerable. We'll maybe talk about it in different video. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this question and solution. And like every other video, I will appreciate it if you register, like, or write any comment or question. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And I hope our next question will be a bit interesting like this one. So I'll see you in the next video. See ya.